the ironing board?
Nope.
No.
We're gonna
Before
fold over
that.
top part and
Oh, great.
sew
Yeah, you're
it.
gonna cut some of that.
And top stitch
You're
it.
gonna cut some of this off.
You mean trim?
Trim, yeah.
So I have only I have my pattern already adjusted to where I only have 1/4 inch seam allowances. But since your pattern has 5/8 of an inch seam allowances, you can trim your seam allowance right here.
Okay.
Or you can grade it, however, whatever you're comfortable with. So what we are gonna do now is,
And there will be some
Fold
clipping.
that down and make
You
it
do clip
flat.
that one or no?
you could clip it, but it's not needed because I'm gonna fold the seam allowances up into the stand. Usually clipping is needed when you are trying to fold your seam allowances back onto the larger area.
That makes sense.
So how much is the fold? What am I gonna do now right here?
1/4 inch for you. Or a little bit more?
Just a little bit
Yeah,
less.
I bet.
Yeah, I meant less.
Just a little bit less.
Going
To hide
over.
the
So if
stitch.
there's 1/4 inch seam allowance right here,
Right.
and I have 1/4 inch fold right here, then what's gonna happen is I barely am gonna be covering the
Covering the
seam,
stitches.
right? So what I wanna do is I wanna fold it just a little bit less so that I can go over the seam.
I mean, a little
Okay,
bit
you
more.
want
Just by like 1/8.
You want to cover the seam.
Yeah,
You wanna cover
Fold
the
it
seam.
less, yeah,
Okay.
1/4 inch, yeah. Now that's the inside of the shirt now?
That's the inside of the shirt,
Okay.
yes. So center back to center back.
Oh, see, that's what I didn't-
Shoulder seam to shoulder notch to shoulder seam, just like how we did before. You don't want to pick your needle and start hand basting. You want to make sure that it's pinned in place and it looks good, in case you needed to make an adjustment.
Are we gonna base
You can borrow some of my pins.
That'd be a good
Find
idea,
out.
I think.
And where will the basting stitch be? On the far side? Well, you tell me. Where's the basting stitch gonna go? Your hand basting?
Where do you think the hand basting stitch gonna go?
Well, right next to where the real seam's gonna go, but I was wondering which side of the seam you're thinking about.
I put it on the fold, close to the fold.
That's why I just wanted to hold it
Yeah,
tight.
sure.
I was just worried about the seam
Magnet thing.
stitching into it.
Yep.
That's one thing only I've got
There you
two
go.
Thank you. Oh, that's a lot.
machine. Her long stitch isn't long enough for a real good basting stitch. It's too tight.
And right here, there's a lot of bulk, so you can clip some of it if you want,
Carefully, yes.
carefully.
I had an oops on my collar. Like,
Yeah, you don't wanna. And then just try to work with it.
make it curvy.
All right, so it's gonna look like that. And then you will, of course, go ahead and pin the rest of the collar. I don't want to keep you here for like another hour or so. So I'm just gonna do half of it for now, so that you guys can move on to your. And then I'll go ahead and
Yep.
that's not a good-
That's what I was thinking too.
And
That
then
way
when
you
you're
won't have a chance of
basting, you
rolling
could
up on you.
just baste with the.
What'd you say?
When you're basting, you can just baste with single strand.
Yes. Yeah, not too hard, huh? Maybe 5 minutes at the most. Yeah, 3 minutes. The sound of that machine is calming to me. Is it anybody else?
Yeah.
Like a background music or something.
Humming.
Many times when you do something like this on jackets, you can just even hand stitch this part because jackets need a lot more like custom work and you know, especially if you're doing the custom work, you can do it a little bit, you can spend a little bit more time on it.
What kind of hand stitch would you use?
You could do herringbone, which is also called catch stitch. You can do pick stitch or slip stitch, depending on, you know, what your material wants to take. So now this is basted in place,
No pins in the way. When I
right?
was taught it was a no-no to put pins, to sew with pins in your.
And this seam that you're seeing, that's my stay stitching seam. As I was talking, you are gonna go ahead and top stitch or edge stitch.
Edge stitch.
We were just talking about that. What's the difference?
How far away it is
to the
from
edge.
here.
Okay.
Top stitch about quarter inch, right?
Right. So top stitching is about 1/4 inch in. So if I do 1/4 inch in stitching, what is gonna happen?
You're not gonna
You
cut.
might not get it.
I'm gonna have this raw edge
Right. Yeah,
flipping
okay,
out,
okay.
right? So that won't be good. So I wanna edge
Unless
stitch.
you want to do double needle.
Right. So just starting it right here. Now this is, well, I'll keep that to myself for now. I was gonna tell you a little trick, but I think it's a little too early.
You can tell it twice.
Well, what I do, the trick is that because where you end after going around, this is where you start is where you're gonna end. So this edge turns out to be pulling just a tiny bit,
What
right?
point? What?
It kind of pulls just a tiny bit.
Okay.
So you can always start a little bit right here so that you are not like doing over stitching because this part is gonna get covered with your collar anyway.
So then they look exactly the same.
Right, so that the ends look exactly the same. You don't want to have like even finish looking, nice looking seam, and you don't want to have like overly backstitched seam that looks like it's pulling, right? So should we do that? Let's go ahead and do that. The other trick is that on women's shirts, you can always start from the, if you like to start on the end and finish it here, then start it on the left side because the right side overlaps. And then on men's, it's the other way around. The left side overlaps and the right side goes underneath, right? Everybody knows that? That on men's shirts, the left side has the buttonholes. On women's shirts, right side has the buttonholes.
Well, that's very sexist of the industry.
I know, right?
It should be the same.
I heard a story of why that is. You want to hear the story I heard a long time ago?
It's all custom work.
But it's not.
Need help getting dressed?
What was your story?
It was easier for the person
Because
doing
the woman was dressed by the
It's like women would get, get buttoned like this, but men would do by themselves. So that's how they would put the buttons.
I haven't
somebody
heard
was
that one.
dressing the woman.
I heard a lot of times because the women would be riding side saddle and it was the wrong way, so they had to go this way because the wind would come in there.
So you want us here even a sexiest, more like gender bias comment? How do you remember on, because a lot of people will say like, I forgot, I don't remember how men's have which side, like,
Women are
right?
always right.
And
Men are always right.
no,
Oh,
women are always right.
so men are always wrong.
Women are always right. And men are leftover.
Oh, that's a key.
Well, damn.
That was back in the day.
Especially when I have two stands. I don't want to call
I
men
more,
over.
I didn't
hey,
create
I
it.
more identify with women anyway, so you know.
So that's one way to remember. Women are always right and men are leftover.
Yeah, I don't like the leftover part though.
So we're edge stitching right here.
I just figured they're the opposite
And then
of the right,
since
yeah.
we're gonna be going around and sewing back on the stitch, I try not to back stitch too much
Oh,
here.
so you're doing that connecting stitch at the collar, but then you're also going to do the stay stitch all the way around the stand.
Right. What do you mean by stay stitch?
Edge
Well,
stitching.
edge
stitching.
stitching. Edge, stay where the hell I put you.
Excuse me?
Not, I talk to my machine. I say, stay where the hell I put you. Stop warping the material. Because it's not me doing the warping. It's not my fault. It's the machine. Although it's a
Of course,
$600
your machine is rolling its
computerized
eyes.
machine, it's wrong, not me.
Yeah, of course.
Naturally, I love my machine.
I'm saying, yeah, right.
So see how easy it's gonna be because there's bulk in here, and then if I try to backstitch and overstitch, it's just a mess. So I like to keep it nice and clean.
Just saw that very nicely, huh?
And you can always cut
You don't-
down
you don't
your
go way
stitch
back so
just a
it's not-
tiny bit. Just take your time, don't rush over it because rushing over it will mean what? Redoing it.
So I have a question. Certain machines I've noticed, like my Singer that I have, which is like a $600 machine, like to get a close to a what's it called, like a stay stitch, wide stitch, basting stitch, I have to go all the way to 7 on both.
What are you talking about? Basting stitch?
The-
or
yeah.
stay stitch? Or edge
Basting,
stitch?
sorry.
Those are like three
Anyways,
different things.
Anytime I try and make a stitch and make sure that it's, you know,
Long enough?
long enough or small enough
That's
that
basting stitch.
okay, so long, small enough to do the edging. It's like instead of like you say put it on like 2.5, I have to put mine on like almost 4. Because if I put it at 2, they're like I mean they're like
Yeah,
right
see,
on top of
I
each
see.
other. They're
I've
so
had Singer.
tiny.
Because
Singer, I
your
cannot
machine
rip
has
them.
a
And the
lot
Singer 4 is
wider
about
range
right.
of stitch length.
And the
It's
Singer,
not
and the
necessarily
Singer
the
4 is about the right,
size,
like this one.
but like, here's your gauge from one
That's
to
what I
10. So I
used to
guess
learn
there's,
down Singer.
like our gauge
Before they got sold to somebody else.
way bigger.
So you're back
Your
at
two
the
is
other
here.
corner edge now.
So to do like a
So I'm gonna just go ahead and hand wheel. It's totally worth it.
take your time and go.
So there won't be any ends out there, huh?
And then I think I need like a tiny stitch.
Sometimes I'll scoot it to like
See,
a
do you
one.
see what I was saying? If I would have started here, I was gonna need a lot more juggling here.
Sometimes your machine doesn't like to go backwards.
Right.
for a moment.
And then I didn't backstitch. Why? This is one of the few places where you're not gonna backstitch on your for your permanents.
But now you will?
Because I'm gonna lock this end that I started with by going over it.
Right.
Just for a couple inches. And since because I went over it and this is not the edge that's pulling apart, right? On the side seam we're almost kind of like stretching it all the
that
time.
just
So
sits
it's gonna stay in place. And that's what you want to do for hems as well.
How many more? I go like another 10 stitches
Just-
over it,
2 to 3.
and no more back stitching at all.
No back stitching is needed. Look,
That's a deal.
so much cleaner.
Very
I see people back stitching. I'm like, you're not gonna be pulling these like this, right? So you're fine. And that's exactly how you can do hems as
Because it
well.
looks prettier. doesn't it?
I think I missed a couple places here as I was talking, but this is how it's gonna turn out to be.
All right.
Looks good.
Yeah.
So I guess we talk about sleeves then.
And then we're gonna work on